Now, ever since the Buss family has sold the Los Angeles Lakers, we've been seeing a lot of different reports on the estimation of an evaluation of what the team is worth. There's been a lot of misleading headlines making it seem like the family got $10 billion for their current percentage of ownership. And as the weeks passed after the sale, you started to hear more of the mainstream NBA media speak the truth about what was going on with the Lakers behind the scenes, behind the most recognizable logo in the NBA. For example, how their medical team ranked versus other franchises, also their analytics department, scouting, coaching staffs, a lot of internal hires like the Rambis family. You can even look at Rob Pelinka, that was Kobe Bryant's agent. A lot of the internal operations was really called into question by NBA media members who've known these things could be an issue for years. And they've alluded to the fact that the Lakers, they kind of been cutting corners on those ends. You could look at the JJ Redick hire. They didn't pay as much money for a coach. Same thing for Darvin Ham when they had him there. And also with Steve Ballmer owning the Clippers in the same town, they actually have the best facilities and is spending top dollar on back-end personnel. But in this segment, we're going to get deep into this whole Lakers sale because it requires a lot of further inspection underneath the hood. And we're going to hear from former Florida Marlins president David Samsung as he kind of breaks down some of the dynamics that's going on with the Buss family and how they sold the team not necessarily from a position of power, but it may more resemble from a position of desperation. Keep in mind the father had passed away in 2013, Dr. Buss, and he purchased the team for $67 million. So the family had to pay taxes on that $67 million evaluation up until his death. So when the kids had inherited the team, they now had to pay based off of the new evaluation for that current day, which the Lakers were then evaluated at $1 billion. So ever since 2013, the family, in ordinance with the city, has been paying taxes based off of that $1 billion evaluation. And just to add some more nuance before we get to hear from David Samsung, keep in mind that the family did have internal strife when they first took over. Jeannie Buss let her brother take over the GM roles, which they kind of got into a little dispute with Phil Jackson upon his possible return. Also in 2020, when they won that championship in the bubble, as one of the siblings tried to take more control of the franchise in the position that Jeannie Buss was put in by her father. And this family only makes their money through the Lakers, unlike a lot of the other NBA owners, especially the new ones today that have multiple revenue streams. Another monkey wrench I'm going to throw into this situation is the way owners now are selling these teams and reporting that they're maintaining control. Mark Cuban sold the Mavericks for $3.5, which a lot of people already side-eyed that price because it was lower than what the Phoenix Suns got a few years earlier, and this is minus inflation. You would think Cuban would get a higher price, but it was reported that he maintained control just so he can justify that price, just to see Luka get traded, and we find out that he never maintained any control. The Mavericks at the time, they lost their local TV revenue with the Diamond Sports bankruptcy, and at the same time, Mark Cuban saw the writing on the wall with the way the luxury tax was constructed with the new CBA, because the cost of building around a player like Luka, not necessarily his contract, the cost around his contract to pay Kyrie, to get others on the team, to pay their extensions at even a higher price point when they come up, that was going to be costly. And that right there is what exactly Mark Cuban was afraid of. We've seen it happen with the Phoenix Suns, where their owner was paying $140 million plus a year just to watch his team get worse and worse and worse. So this exact situation was going to play out for the Lakers also, as those of you that are watching the visual version, as you can see here, they were barely underneath the second apron in the 24-25 season. But if you look at the 25-26 season, that's with LeBron James opting in and less players being on the roster. The team not only costs more, but they also have less breathing room to put players around Luka to keep this team competitive. So just like Mark Cuban, Jeannie Buss sees the writing on the wall. Jeannie, alongside her 5 other siblings, who for the most part are all entering into their 60s or even in their late 50s, had an interesting ordeal the way the father had left the Lakers to them, because had any of the siblings had passed away, the percentages of their shares don't go to their children. The writing was always on the wall for the Buss family to sell the Lakers. Not only they're paying a higher tax evaluation, going from 67 million to 1 billion in 2013 when the father had passed away. Now all the siblings are going into older age and they're wondering if they pass away, their kids would not benefit from owning the Lakers. Their percentages will get spread across their other siblings and not go to their children. So there's a lot of nuances that go into this story. The Buss family has about 60% of the Lakers shares, and in 2021 they sold about 27% of a minority stake to the owners of the Los Angeles Dodgers, who end up buying the rest of the majority stake in 2025 anyway. So the $10 billion that was reported was not really correct. They sold 27% of their shares for about $1.5 billion. But David Sampson right here, former president of the Florida Marlins, who has plenty of experience in dealing with these type of situations, spoke on it. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Just a couple days ago, it was announced that the Lakers are being sold by the Buss family to the owner of the Dodgers for what people are reporting is $10 billion. $10 billion is a healthy number and completely unsubstantiated. We do not know exactly what the total valuation is of the Lakers. There have been absolutely numerous media reports and people taking credit for having the scoop of what percentage is exactly being sold by the Buss family to Mark Walter and his group. Mark Walter was already an owner of the Lakers.
Remember, I stated earlier that he bought 27% of a minority stake into the team in 2021.
Mark Walter is taking majority control of the Lakers. He is not writing a $10 billion check. Even if he were buying 100% of the Lakers, he would not be writing a $10 billion check.
Right here, David Sampson knows something right away about how these owners leverage the equity of their teams to sometimes acquire debt. Make no mistake about it, Jeannie Buss and her family are liquid rich, but they're cash poor. So there's a possibility out of some of the percentages that they already own have been divvied out as ways to cover debt. So we don't exactly know how much of a majority stake the Buss family really has.
As an enterprise value, don't forget you have to subtract the debt and any other purchase price adjustments in a purchase of a team. Purchase price adjustments can be in the form of an out-of-market contract or some sort of obligation of the existing owner that would not carry over to the new owner. So $10 billion is not the number that Walter is solving for. But wherever he gets his money, whether it's the Middle East or whether it's his mattress, he is going to figure out, along with the Buss family, how this is going to work. And what we're already hearing is that Jeannie Buss, the current governor who won a power struggle with her brothers after the dad died, she is the governor of the team. She fired her brother. Succession style, baby. He was doing like player personnel stuff and he would make trades and not tell her about it or stuff that she didn't approve. And she was like, hey, see you later, bro.
And that lawsuit took place in the same time the Lakers were kind of going through that championship run in the bubble. Jeannie Buss behind the scenes, yeah, she was going through it.
And not in a negative way did she call him that. And in order for the Buss kids to sell, they had to vote. And they have never been able to agree to sell the team at any price to anyone until now, where they've agreed that it's time to take some cash off the table. The concept of being asset rich and cash poor is a concept that many people have that you wouldn't think have, because you would just assume, my God, that person's rich. And then you realize that, well, wait a minute, they don't have a lot of actual money to spend. They have things that are worth money.
Exactly. That's been the MO of the Lakers franchise for a long time. They have the prestige of a New York Yankees, of a Manchester United. But when it comes to the finances, not really. The family overall didn't even have the cash to set themselves up the same way Steve Ballmer's setting up the Clippers to make a ton of money. You can tell from the way they agreed to lock in the Lakers to play in an arena that they do not own for the next 10 years. Also, they locked themselves into a TV deal with Time Warner Cable while the NBA is going into streaming. They could have easily had waited and done a deal with Netflix and possibly earn even more money. But maybe they needed the cash at the time. And another way you could look at them cutting corners is the coaching hires. They didn't really go out their way spending money getting a coach. You got LeBron James, you get Darvin Ham, then you go out and get JJ Redick. Once again, multiple media members after the sale of this team has stated the Lakers facilities are not really up to par compared to other franchises, including staffs from different departments, whether it be analytical, medical, or even scouting. The Lakers have always operated as a mom and pop franchise, and right now in the NBA, the way the business and the money is going, those days are coming to a close.
If you don't sell something that's worth money, you can't use cash. Now you can mortgage it, you can borrow against it, you can use it as collateral, except when you own a sports team, you are using much of that sports team as collateral for your existing debt. So for example, in baseball, there's something called the league-wide credit facility, which is money that is borrowed using a national TV contract and your share of it as collateral.
Interesting point that he brings up right there. Again, keep in mind, the Lakers has signed a mega long-term deal with Time Warner Cable. So not only the Buss family has the option of leveraging the team's net worth, they could also leverage the net worth of that contract. And to a degree, each sibling, including Jeannie Buss, could leverage her own personal net worth to pay off certain debts. I remember Jeannie Buss had even stated she lost some of her own personal money from the Russell Westbrook fiasco. That was really the first signal that she was eventually going to sell.
I swear to God, I'll pay you back. But if I don't, you can have my 1/30th share of all national revenue. But I want to borrow more money. All right, I'll put my tickets, food, beverage, merchandise, and my local TV deal in a pot, and I'll use that as collateral.
Again, the details of that local TV deal is the Lakers are locked in with Time Warner Cable for 20 years in a $3 billion deal. So that's $218 million payout per year. And you can see how long that deal is for 20 years. They're going to miss out on all that inflation. So if the TV rights or just the local rights go up even higher, they're not going to be able to capitalize off of none of that inflation. 20 years is too fucking long, but it shows you the desperation that they need to lock in that long-term deal to obtain that type of guarantee equity that they could leverage to even pay off certain debts.
Well, but what if nobody shows up to your games? All right, I'll put my own net worth as collateral of this debt. So there's so many different levels of debt that franchises have, that people have, that sometimes you say selling the underlying asset makes the most financial sense. Let me do a transaction where I can realize liquidity. Liquidity is when you have the ability to go buy a car, a boat, a piece of art, a house, something, not with debt, with actual money that you have in your bank. Now, of course, people are very complimentary of the fact that the Buss family bought this team at $67.5 million, and now they're selling it at $10 billion. That is quite a capital gain. What they're ignoring is that when Dr. Jerry Buss died, you get what's called a step up in basis.
Now, this is the tax that he's about to go over. The father passed away, and the team was only evaluated at $67 million. That's the price point that the city recognizes the business of the Los Angeles Lakers to be at, and it went up all the way to $1 billion. So now the siblings, every year after 2013, the city of Los Angeles recognized the Lakers as a business had a $1 billion evaluation. So you can imagine the taxes on that.
So the kids are not paying a tax based on something bought for $67 million and now selling for $10 billion. If they were, just say that's a $10 billion gain. Let's say that your capital gains rate, just for purposes of this conversation, 20%, you're losing $2 billion off the top. But of course, they're not getting $10 billion. They're not paying $2 billion in taxes. The basis of their team is done the day Jerry Buss dies. What's the team worth? And when he died in 2000 and whatever it is, I want to say 13 or 14, the team clearly was not worth $10 billion, but they argued at the time, and I'm sure got a very healthy step up in basis. What is happening in LA is a transaction that has not been approved by the league at all. There is nothing signed. You can bet your sweet bippy because you only sign it once the league approves it. But there was a rumor again. And I'm going to call it the CR. It's my new favorite term. The Cuban rumor. The Cuban rumor is that Mark Cuban was selling the Mavericks and he was going to keep control of the basketball operation and still be the governor, which means the controlling owner when you're in an owner's meeting and you get to vote on behalf of your team. And we told you on Nothing Personal, that was complete horse hockey. And we were mocked from coast to coast, ocean to ocean, except we turned out to be right.
The Luka trade exposed that. Mark Cuban had no control. Even he was shocked by the trade. But again, that context is thrown in when a team sells is because the owners are low-key selling the team below what the media perception is of what the net worth is. Mark Cuban, at the end of the day, possibly only got $1.5 billion for the Dallas Mavericks. We don't know how much debt that he had on that team. The only thing we know for sure is that they lost their local TV money because Diamond Sports have filed for bankruptcy. So them, along with many other NBA teams, had to scramble and kind of figure out what they're going to do as far as broadcasting their games locally. The Phoenix Suns had to link up with the Arizona Diamondbacks and kind of formulate their own app and also provide the games over the air with a basic antenna. So the games were free in Phoenix. The Mavericks linked up with the baseball team, I believe the Texas Rangers, and they also formulated their own app. Same thing for the Houston Rockets, the Utah Jazz. A lot of teams in the Southwest and some in the Pacific had to reorganize themselves because that Diamond Sports bankruptcy really affected a lot of teams. The Pelicans, the Memphis Grizzlies, etc. So with that revenue lost, who knows how much debt they had to take on and perhaps leverage the net worth of the team as collateral. And who the fuck is spending all that money just to not have control of a team? That doesn't make any sense. There's no business person spending even $3 billion and they don't have control of their asset. Doesn't make any sense.
Because the rule in basketball is a pretty simple rule. You can't be the governor unless you are out front, you own a higher percentage than anyone, and you are a majority. That was the whole issue, by the way. Side note, when you're putting together transactions and teams are being sold and they're using private equity or they're using Middle East money, whatever it is they're using, and you have to find a way to raise more money on your own. Is this sounding familiar, Celtics fans? When the deal had to change, when Bill Chisholm originally was doing the transaction for Boston at what people are reporting at $6.1 billion, which is not true. It's a step transaction and it's already firm what the steps are and when and at what valuation. It's not hopeful that the Celtics will be worth more one day. The Celtics are being sold today for a blended price above 6.1. And you're reading in every article the Celtics sold at 6.1 billion. That's just wrong, period. But Bill Chisholm did not own enough of the Celtics to be the governor because he was taking money from these firms. It had to be changed, and it was. Same thing here. Mark Walter will be the governor of the team, not Jeannie Buss. No matter what Jeannie Buss keeps, and the rumor is the family's keeping 15%. Whether it's true or not, it makes no difference.
Interesting, they're keeping 50%. So originally they owned about 60. We could estimate it to that. Then in 2021, they sold 27%. They still had majority shares, so they still had control. And then you see the remaining shares now have been sold, right? Except like David Sampson just said, they kept 15%. So $10 billion for another, 45% of shares? That number does not quite add up. That's why I said these sales, there's a lot of things underneath the hood that we have to look at upon further inspection.
Jeannie Buss herself will not own a majority of the team. She will not be the largest shareholder. She will not be the governor. And if you think that Mark Walter and his partners are buying the team for $10 billion, the Athletic said it could be $12 billion. It could be $20 billion. I don't care what it is. You're going to spend that amount of money and say, hey, we're good here. I'm too busy doing Andrew Friedman's job and Stan Kasten's job in LA. I don't have time to do your job too. I'm going to stand over both franchises and just go full Paul McCartney. Let it be, let it be. No. Stop believing what you read. Jeannie Buss will remain the governor for years. Give me a break.
Yes, unfortunately, the reporting is completely off. Lakers sell for $10 billion and Jeannie Buss remains the controlling governor for years. Doesn't make any sense. But it is what it is. As you can see, the Buss family, unfortunately, they didn't necessarily sell this team from a position of power. It's more of a position from, we have many large bills that are due that's coming up. We don't want to leverage too much net worth of the team as far as credit. We had a good run, but fuck it. Let's cash out.